G'day crew, welcome to Go Fantasy. It's your Rage Trade editions for round 16. Go Fantasy brought to you by checkmyrates.au. Visit the website, it's free to use. Take control of your financial future. Brandon and the team will help you get a better home loan rates. Last round of the buys, people. Finally, we're about to move through this period and get back to playing our best 22. But I guess for some, including myself, it's not necessarily a good thing with all these forced trades, and there's a few more on our plate this week, in particular with Jack Sinclair. Pretty brutal as well because he lost a huge amount of cash. So as always, we're going to have to dive into a week of rage trades with a forced trade on our plate. So let's start with defenders and the trade targets that we like this week. So Josh Dacos is someone I floated last week. He had a really big last quarter against Port Adelaide, but I think overall he probably didn't convince us too much that he is the right choice going forward. But he does have the Richmond matchup this week. I'm not sure if you saw the North Melbourne defenders scores. A 150 from Caleb Daniel and a massive score from Luke Parker. Could Dacos sort of fill his boots week one just to get you off to a flying start with him in your side? He's definitely one to consider, given his price. You're making a little bit of money off that move from Sinclair. Let's go through a few of the other defensive options. So John Noble, who played a little bit of time on the wing for Gold Coast, which was pretty frustrating. Like Joel Jeffrey probably took some of his points in his absence from the half-back line. That was a bit of a curveball that we didn't see coming. Gold Coast with a tough game this week against Hawthorn. I think their run might open up a little bit after that. But it's a big price you're playing for John Noble, so perhaps if you're looking to be a little bit more frugal with your cash, he's one that you can let through to the keeper. Rory Laird, massive game. Age shall not weary him in the back line, but Melbourne do give up a lot of points to defenders, as evidenced by Keane and Hall Kahan in the same game. But certainly he's performing above his price right now after that 130 on the weekend from Laird. Lockie Ash, performing pretty well. We talk about him pretty much every week. But with Whitfield moving up the ground in the last quarter, if there was any evidence to suggest that that might continue, it's probably good news for Lockie Ash and very bad news for Whitfield. Sorry, just nursing a cough at the moment. Luckily, I'm in the privacy of the studio. Nick Newman has the Eagles this week. I mean, you feel like it's unlikely that Murdoch's going to do a job on Nick Newman, but I think he and the Blues in good form, 5 wins in a row. They've got Eagles and Richmond over the next 2 weeks. Again, another budget option. Darcy Wilmot, pretty unique coming off the bye for Brisbane, has had a really great last couple of months. I guess the issue with Wilmot is once that Zorko is back, perhaps those points start to flatten out a little bit. I think Zorko's sort of 2 to 3 weeks away after that quad. So let's see. Sam Banks is the cheap option. We spoke about him a bit last week, and it would have been brave to dive into Banks just after one good score. Now that he's got 2 in a row, maybe you're a little more tempted by the rebounding defender. He spent a bit of time on the wing earlier in the year. He's had injuries. It just hasn't quite worked out this year for Banks, but his last 2 weeks have been really good. I've had a look at what the team looks like with him in sitting in a mid-slot, I think M8, with the prospect of a few more 80s on the radar. He's not going to be a finisher in your team, but he's certainly a cheap and reasonable option if he can keep this form up. Nasiah next week, I feel like he's going to be someone we bring into our sides. Max Holmes coming off the bye as well. But he would have been the guy that we wanted this week in terms of bringing in a premium defender. Unfortunately, we can't have him until next week. It is a bit of a weird weekend for trading. Like a lot of targets we'd really love to bring in are on the bye this week. The biggest win in terms of rage trades this week, I feel like, is Jack Steele, whose output over the season has slowly disintegrated into a point now where he's not playable in his side, nearly into the 700s, I think. It hasn't worked out in the long term, but certainly was a good pick to start the season. So what are the midfielders that you could bring in for Jack Steele? So Noah Anderson feels like he's starting to separate himself as an option since having the week off through the appendectomy. He's been great. So Noah Anderson tackles and getting heaps of the pill last week. A lot of turnovers, so his score stayed in check in Supercoach, but was no issue in fantasy. They got the Hawks Friday night. Isaac Heaney coming off the bye. The only flag here, I mean, he's having a great season, but Errol Goulden is due to return, and Goulden's first 7 quarters of the season were fantastic before he dislocated his shoulder, but he's right to go for Thursday night. I mean, we're not launching into Goulden straight away, but the possibility of him taking away a bit of the output from Heaney gives us pause for thought as to whether Isaac is the man to go to. Zach Merritt, big price tag, but playing a bit of half-back at Essendon, certainly racking up. They've got North Melbourne this week. Merritt feels like the trustworthy option, but you are paying a fairly big price. There's no one at West Coast who would bring in. From a Brisbane perspective, or you've got Will Ashcroft, who had a great game before the bye, but had been pretty stale, to be honest, in the weeks leading up to that. I'm not sure you could buy into him with a huge amount of confidence. I'd probably prefer Lachie Neale. Dunkley's clearly been affected by the new ruck rules, not getting as much points at stoppage as he normally would. I don't think you can go there. McCluggage is still out injured. So I think Neale would be the guy. Will Ashcroft would be a roll of the dice. And I just want to throw this one in here. He's currently sitting in my side. It would be very unique and a bit of an island. But George Hewitt, with 2 good matchups coming up for Carlton, he's back in the midfield mix with Josh Fraser in charge. Very cheap and putting up some decent scores. Just having a little look at him. From a forwards perspective, Sam Durham is the best value this week, coming back off the bye, strong midfield role, particularly with Merritt out of the side and Caldwell. I'm not sure what Jai's status is off the bye, but worth checking in on the injury reports. Chad Warner, a gun and has been in really good form the last few weeks, but again with Goulden to return, does that affect him at all? Zach Bailey, likely going to Adelaide next year, so this is his last hurrah with the Lions. If they come home with a wet sail after the bye and their performance start to improve, you could see him and Ashcroft potentially, raising their rating a little bit. But certainly, contract year for Bailey doesn't seem to have affected him too much. Probably no one really at West Coast were looking at Tim Kelly's been good in the forward line, but I think that's sort of capped at about 90 or 95 a week, so we're not going there. So there's your options this week. From a rookie perspective, Marcus Herbert, let's watch the teams to see if he's in there for the Eagles. They'll have a couple of guys coming back in Dersma and McCarthy. Does Herbert hold his spot? He certainly looked very comfortable on debut. To be honest, it would be silly, I think, of the Eagles to leave him out of the side, considering he's only on a 6-month contract. Feels like you want to get a good look at him in the last few games of the season. Bo Adensole looked really good on debut for Gold Coast, and if they're committing to youth, with their season sort of flagging a little bit, we might see him get a run in the side. Look pretty comfortable. John Murray, you've missed the first price change, but he has looked really good the last 2 weeks. The rising star likes his fantasy game as well. Now Xavier Bammett, looking really good at Port. More injuries there. You'd think he keeps his spot, and then a likely debut this week, or a possible debut from Jackson Artemis at Essendon. So that's your defensive downgrade. If you're that way inclined. Kyle Adnan at Richmond would be the other one. You missed the first couple of weeks, but he's on the bubble in Supercoach. He looks okay in defence, might keep his spot for a little while. So there's your lay of the land for your rage trades and trade targets heading into round 16, the last of the buys. You've got 3 trades for the last time, so hopefully you can cash yourself up for a really big upgrade target next week. There's plenty of rookies, that's for sure. So for those of you without Jack Sinclair, I reckon you could get pretty creative this week and do some damage. But for the rest of us, this buy probably not quite as intimidating now that we've probably traded out Bailey Smith, and then we're now losing Jack Sinclair, who would have been on the buy. So probably some pretty competitive scores going to be pumped out this week. Stay with us on GOAT Fantasy right throughout the week as we get set for another massive weekend of fantasy football. Stay safe. Have a great week. We'll chat soon on GOAT Fantasy.